Hi, I'm Ashley and I'm the host of this channel. At the main character's wedding, her sister burst in and started making fun of her for marrying a member of the service staff, but she had no idea who her future husband actually was. What happened next? You'll find out in this episode. While you listen, you can enjoy a selection of nature clips. Enjoy watching. The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character. My name is Gwen Spencer. I have always been the dependable sister, the educator, the calm one. I was the person who always chose the safe path. My older sister, Lauren, however, constantly chased money, authority, and high social standing. She behaved as if her life depended on these things. Despite our long, complex relationship, nothing she had ever done compared to her actions on my wedding day. It happened right in the middle of the service. The interior of the chapel was silent, filled with light streaming through the colored glass. I had just taken Julian's hand at the altar. His expression was steady and peaceful. The pastor was about to ask if anyone here objects when I heard it, high heels clicking sharply on the stone floor. Then her voice cut through the stillness like a sharp blade. "This entire thing is ridiculous," Lauren yelled. She rose from her seat, surrounded by costly fabric and fake outrage. "Gwen, you are ruining your life. You are marrying a server, a waiter, for goodness sake." I felt the entire room pause. Hundreds of people turned their attention toward us. My mother lowered herself deeper into the pew. Someone cleared their throat awkwardly. Julian simply squeezed my hand. A quiet pulse of reassurance came through his fingers. I looked directly at my sister and smiled. She had absolutely no idea who Julian truly was. She didn't know that the man she had just insulted in front of all our friends and family was the heir to one of the largest hospitality companies on the East Coast. The server she was mocking had been born with more wealth and a stronger work ethic than her hedge fund husband, Richard, could ever imagine. And she certainly was unaware of what awaited us at the reception venue. So I kept smiling. It wasn't smugness but certainty. I knew a secret she didn't. The scene she started would end with her humbled beneath expensive crystal lights. The man she insulted would show more compassion than she had ever displayed. Let her scream. This confrontation was not the main event. The true moment of truth was still ahead, and it would change everything between us. Lauren and I did not start out this way. We grew up in a small town in Ohio. We used to share our bedroom, secrets, and even our future dreams. But somewhere along the line our paths diverged. Perhaps it started when she went to Georgetown, and I stayed closer to home to attend Northwestern. Her life quickly became focused on lavish galas and weekend trips on yachts. Mine settled into teaching and developing curriculum. When she married Richard, a hedge fund manager who was 4 years older, our entire family acted like royalty had entered our lives. I still recall my father saying in a low voice, "She did it. She escaped." And there I stood in the corner. I was a newly graduated English major dealing with student loans and a teaching job that paid $42,000 a year. This was where the tension truly began. Lauren started viewing me as a pitiful project wearing practical shoes. Over the years, her judgments grew harsher. Every time we met, she made passive-aggressive comments. They were always hidden behind layers of politeness. "Still driving that old Camry," she might say. Or, "I admire your simple lifestyle. It's so grounding." I never fought back, not even once. I simply smiled, drank my plain water, and changed the topic. But things escalated after I told her about Julian. Julian Hawthorne was the manager of a pleasant Italian place called Luigi's Bistro near Philadelphia when we first met. He was cleaning tables, greeting regular patrons by name, and working seamlessly. He quickly brought me extra napkins when I spilled my soda. We talked for 2 hours after my dinner. By the second date, I knew he was the one I wanted to spend my life building a future with. When I told my sister about him, she laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. It was the sound that showed how profoundly disappointed she was. "You are dating a server, Gwen? With your degree with our family name?" she questioned. "He is more than that," I replied. "Oh, I am sure," she said, taking a sip of wine. "I bet he is very serious about pasta." That was typical Lauren. Everything was measured strictly by money, academic prestige, and designer items. What she failed to realize, and what Julian and I agreed to keep private, was that he wasn't merely a restaurant manager. He was a Hawthorne. He was the only son of the late Marcus Hawthorne, the founder of Hawthorne Hospitality Group. This group controlled a network of upscale restaurants, boutique hotels, and exclusive dining clubs along the eastern seaboard. Julian had made a promise to his father before his passing. He vowed to master the entire business. Starting from the lowest level, after quitting his senior executive role at the top, he went back to the very bottom. He used no special identification and had no private office. He just wore grease-stained aprons and worked 12-hour shifts. "I need to understand every single job I will one day supervise," he explained to me. "The moment I forget what it feels like to mop the floor is the moment I forfeit the right to lead." I loved that about him. It wasn't just his guiding principle, but how he chose to live it out daily. We didn't tell anyone our secret, not my family, and especially not my mother. Bless her heart, she was too kind to pry. But she always looked confused about how we could afford dinner at places requiring valet parking. Julian summed it up best. "Let them make their judgments. The surprise reveal will make everything that much better." Our wedding planning focused on reflecting who we were as a couple. It was small, significant, and deeply personal. We chose a beautiful chapel nestled in the mountains of the Adirondacks. It featured white oak pews and soft organ music. This was nothing like Lauren's Fort Vineyard event in Napa. In the weeks leading up to the ceremony, my sister became increasingly aggressive. She confronted our mother with serious warnings. She instructed my aunt not to bother buying a plane ticket. She convinced 2 cousins I was getting married out of desperation and making a huge mistake. Still, I remained steadfast. Julian was not the risk she imagined. He was the honest truth she couldn't recognize because she had forgotten what true authenticity looked like. She would remember soon enough. It would happen right in front of everyone. There would be no wine glass large enough to hide her face when that moment arrived. The morning of our wedding was clear and cool. The early October air was crisp enough to make everything feel sharp and alive. The chapel looked like a picture tucked among tall pine trees. Its old stone and wooden beams were bathed in soft sunlight. Inside the preparation suite, I sat still. My mother adjusted my veil. Her hands were shaking more from sentiment than from age. "You look stunning," she whispered gently, moving a curl behind my ear. "And ready," I smiled back. I was deeply thankful. The past few months had been a constant flow of whispered disapproval, reluctant RSVP responses, and tension that made my shoulders ache. But today none of that mattered. I was marrying Julian. He was the man who brought me tea when I had severe headaches. He was the one who read poetry with me on rainy Sundays. He always knew exactly when to keep silent and when to offer advice. I thought the hardest part was finally over until the chapel doors swung open. We were midway through the ceremony. Julian and I had just finished exchanging our vows. Our hands were tightly held. The pastor then addressed the congregation with the standard phrase, "If anyone here objects to this union, speak now or forever, hold your peace." There was a moment of absolute stillness. Then click, click, click. The sound of high heels was unmistakable, purposeful. Lauren stood up from her seat. She moved with the calculated composure of someone stepping onto a stage she believed she owned. "This is completely insane," she declared. Her voice echoed throughout the chapel like a siren. "Gwen, you are making a massive error. You are throwing your entire life away." The pastor froze instantly. Murmurs traveled through the rows of guests. Julian's hand didn't flinch in mine, but I could feel the muscles in his fingers tighten. Lauren's dress was deep navy silk, impeccably tailored. Her lipstick was flawless. Her expression was one of manufactured outrage. It was clearly rehearsed. "You are marrying a waiter, Gwen," she snapped. "Have you completely lost your mind? You graduated at the top of your class. You had so many opportunities, and this is what you choose." I looked straight back at her, remaining calm. My father tried to quiet her from the front row. "Lauren, that is enough." But she kept pushing forward. Her heels sounded like a judge's gavel on the stone aisle. "Don't come crying to me later when you are stuck clipping coupons in a small apartment above a cheap pizza place." I did not reply. Julian didn't either. He just glanced at me with his usual patient demeanor. His eyes held a playful spark that only I understood. "Should we let her in on the secret?" he mouthed playfully. I gave a tiny headshake. "Not yet." Lauren threw her hands up in frustration and spun around. She marched out of the chapel like a banished queen. Her exit was concluded by the loud closing of the heavy oak doors behind her. The silence remaining was so heavy you could hear every person breathing. The pastor cleared his throat lightly. "Shall we proceed?" I turned to Julian. My voice was calm and steady. "Yes," I confirmed. "Please." The rest of the ceremony felt sacred. The atmosphere felt much lighter without my sister's presence. Our vows meant more. The applause felt genuinely warmer. As we walked back down the aisle holding hands, there was an electric energy in the air. Everyone seemed to know they had just witnessed the beginning of something much more dramatic than they had anticipated. Outside, the sky was much brighter. Our guests tossed dried lavender and looked visibly relieved. Julian helped me get into a clean vintage Rolls-Royce that had parked next to the chapel entrance. The leather inside felt expensive and soft, and the motor ran very quietly underneath us. "Quite a nice rental car," I joked. He smiled broadly. "It's from my personal stock," I laughed, then rested my head against his shoulder. "Do you think my sister will show up?" I asked. "Oh, she will definitely show," he answered confidently. "Lauren would never skip a chance to criticize our floral arrangements and complain about the dessert selection. She probably assumes we are serving small cakes and cheap wine in a box." I looked out the window. The trees flew past, their autumn colors burning bright like fire. She still has no clue what is about to happen. Julian kissed my temple gently. She will know very soon. With that, we drove toward the second part of the day. The truth, much like the finest wine, had been aging quietly, waiting to be revealed. The Hawthorne Manor sat on a high, quiet hill overlooking the water. Its limestone exterior was glowing like gold in the late afternoon sun. Most people in the Philadelphia area recognized the name. Very few people had ever actually been inside. This was not the kind of place you could book easily online. You needed an invitation to get in if you were lucky. That afternoon, the entire place was shut down for the public. It was reserved entirely for our wedding reception. When our car pulled up to the entrance, I could see guests exiting shuttle buses. Their faces registered surprise, then outright shock. I heard one person behind us quietly ask, "Wait, is this the Hawthorne Manor? How did they manage this?" Julian helped me out of the car. His hands felt firm against my back. He wore the same calm smile he always did, but I knew better. His eyes were sparkling with anticipation. He had waited years for this specific moment. He wasn't waiting to show off. He wanted to reveal who he truly was. This wasn't just for my family, but for everyone who had ever underestimated the power of true humility. The uniformed doorman bowed and opened the large glass doors. Inside, the air was cool. It smelled of citrus and rosemary. Crystal light fixtures shone brightly above, their light reflecting off the smooth marble floors. Servers wearing white gloves moved silently among the guests. They carried champagne flutes and small appetizers arranged like artwork. The impact was immediate. People slowed their pace. Conversations quieted into low murmurs. This was more than just nice. It was exclusive and high-end. Too exclusive for someone like me, they were likely thinking, and far too grand for a waiter. Then my sister arrived. She was 20 minutes late as usual. Her high heels clicked across the floor with her typical practiced elegance. Then she suddenly stopped. I watched her from across the room as she looked around. Her eyebrows drew together tightly. "This has to be wrong," she said loudly, making sure nearby guests heard. "They don't host weddings here." She walked quickly toward me with a strange forced smile. "Gwen, sweetie, where exactly are we? Did someone pull a huge favor for you?" Before I could answer, a smooth voice from behind me spoke. "No favors needed, just family." Julian stepped right beside me. He was completely relaxed and in command. My sister blinked at him. "Julian, I thought you worked over at Luigi's Bistro." "I did," he replied. "I still stop by sometimes. Great kitchen. I learned a lot there. But this place," she stammered, looking around. "This is the Hawthorne Manor and I am a Hawthorne." He responded gently. She didn't immediately grasp it. Took several seconds. Then she frowned. "Hawthorne? Like Hawthorne Hospitality Group?" An entirely new voice cut in before Julian could reply. "Julian." Heads turned quickly. An elderly man in a crisp navy suit walked toward us. His cane tapped softly on the floor. His silver hair was neatly combed. His presence immediately silenced the entire room. It felt like gravity was centered around him. "Grandfather," Julian said, smiling warmly. George Hawthorne gave Julian a firm hug, then turned to me and kissed my cheek. "So, this is the young woman who finally persuaded my grandson to stop hiding in restaurant kitchens. He looked at my sister last, and you must be the sister. I heard you cause quite a scene at the church." My sister flushed deeply. I didn't realize," she stuttered. "Ah yes," George replied calmly. "You didn't realize my grandson was just a server. Is that what you called him?" A champagne glass slipped right through my sister's fingers and shattered on the marble floor. Nobody moved to assist her. No one even flinched. Every pair of eyes in the room was fixed on her. The people who had heard her loud complaints just a few hours earlier were now watching the truth become crystal clear. "I was only trying to protect my sister," she said weakly. "I thought," George countered, "that you believed his job determined his value. It's a common mistake, but a very shallow one." My sister stood completely still. Her mouth was open but no sound came out. Then Julian did something totally unexpected. He reached out his hand to her. "Stay," he said softly. "Enjoy the party tonight. There is room for everyone here if they are willing to truly see people for who they are, not just what they do." Gasps and quiet murmurs fluttered around us like leaves. Lauren looked at him completely astonished. "After everything I said?" He nodded gracefully. "Exactly. I didn't need to say anything at all. I simply slipped my arm through Julian's and smiled." My sister hesitated for a moment. Then she finally nodded. I would like that," she whispered, barely audible. George cleared his throat loudly. "Then perhaps we can move past all the drama and let these two enjoy their first dance." As Julian led me toward the center of the ballroom, the music started to swell. I looked quickly over my shoulder. I caught sight of my sister standing by herself. Her eyes looked watery and her posture was humbled. She was watching a truth she had never expected to witness. This was more than just a revelation. It was a moment of true reckoning, and it had only just begun. 10 months later, Julian and I moved into a comfortable brownstone with a view of the Philadelphia harbor. Despite his wealth, we chose to live intentionally and quietly. I continued teaching. He spent his days visiting various Hawthorne properties, talking to the head chefs, advising new staff, and meeting with suppliers. It wasn't flashy work, but it was genuine and it felt like hours. Meanwhile, my sister went silent for a while. Then, right on cue, she reappeared. This time, it wasn't with a sharp criticism or a photo from St. Bart's. She arrived at our doorstep at 11:40 p.m. on a stormy Thursday night. She was soaking wet, covered in mascara and expensive drenched silk. "They are taking everything," she whispered. Her voice was unrecognizable. "The house, the car. Richard is facing a federal investigation. Insider trading. Fraud. I have no idea what to do now." Julian and I shared a quick look. It was the kind of glance that needed no words. I guided her into our living room. She sat rigidly on the edge of the sofa. Her hands were clasped tight. Her eyes quickly moved between the fireplace and the floor as if she couldn't bear to look directly at either of us. "I have never had to start over," she admitted after a long pause. "I don't know how this works." Julian set his laptop aside and leaned forward. "We have a small staff apartment located above one of our smaller restaurants in Cambridge. It's tiny, nothing luxurious, but it is clean and safe. It would be a decent place for you to begin." My sister's eyes widened, clearly shocked. "You would do that for me after how I treated you?" "On one condition," I said softly. "You must work in the restaurant, not in an office or behind a desk. You start exactly where Julian started. You do the hard work. Dishwashing, serving tables, food prep, closing shifts, all of it." She stared at me in absolute silence. "I'm not doing this to punish you," I added quickly. "I am giving you an opportunity. It is the type of chance you never offered to anyone else." There was a long silence. Then she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I will do it, but I don't know how to be good at anything real." "You will learn," Julian said, standing up. "We all had to." So she started the next week. My sister moved into the apartment with just 2 suitcases and no one to help her unpack them. She exchanged her silk tops for black non-slip shoes and an apron. On her very first shift, she dropped an entire tray of water glasses. She cried alone in the walk-in freezer, but she returned the next morning and the day after that. Humility is not something that can be faked. It must be earned through sweat, quiet focus, and scraped knuckles. For the first time, Lauren was truly earning hers. 6 months later, I visited the Cambridge location right before the dinner rush. The restaurant was buzzing with smooth chaos. Orders were called out, pans clattered, and laughter came from the back. And there at the serving pass was my sister. Her hair was pulled into a tight bun. Sleeves were rolled up past her elbows. No jewelry, no makeup gloss, just focus. She was calling out orders with clear confidence, balancing full plates easily. She moved like someone who finally grasped the rhythm of honest work. She has earned their respect, Julian said next to me, nodding toward the kitchen staff. The team trusts her. They know she isn't pretending. After her shift, we sat her down at a private corner booth. How would you feel about managing this location? Julian asked casually. My sister froze, eyes wide. Me? You would trust me with that responsibility. You've earned it, I confirmed. You showed up every single day. Not once did you act like a victim. You mastered the entire operation from the inside out. She swallowed hard. I never thought I would say this, but I genuinely love this job. I love earning something this way. Tears filled her eyes. I used to think success meant being envied, she whispered. Now I know it means being respected for your character, not for what you wear. At the following family gathering, she wore her simple hawthorn uniform like a badge of honor. Not to impress anyone, but to stand tall and confident. This time nobody laughed at her. She wasn't the punchline anymore.